Welcome to the Town Square Podcast, where local advocates for a better Newton County bring their different perspectives to the messy middle to have a conversation where our aim is unity, not uniformity. I'm one of your hosts, Trey Bailey, and unfortunately, Gabriel Stovall, as I look to my left, is on assignment in Augusta tonight, so he's not going to be with us. But we have a fantastic guest and a brand new city councilman. I keep saying brand new. Councilman Dwayne Turner, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great. And this is funny because we are recording, and I know these come out a little bit later, but we're recording on Wednesday, the 17th, 18th, something like that. And it's the day after a very exciting, or 2 days after a very exciting city council meeting that we might
Definitely
discuss pieces and parts of. But let's just get, you've watched a few shows, so our platform is really just letting people get to know those who are serving in our community. And you ran a great campaign and had some tough competition, and
Thank you.
Was successful. So congratulations on
Thank you.
on
I
winning that
appreciate
seat. And you're the new guy.
it. Yes, sir. Yes,
Right?
sir. Yes, sir.
So what's it like, man? What's it like being on the city council now, 3 months into it? This episode brought to you in part by SCB Construction Group. Ever step into a new building and think, wow, everything just clicks? Well, that's not magic. It's expert planning, precision, and execution. And now, as an Engineering News record top 100 Southeast contractor, SCB Construction Group is proving their excellence on every scale. Locally owned and community driven, they bring stories to life one structure at a time. Our church, East Ridge, even partnered with them on a 12,000 square foot building down on Highway 36. It's now called Life Now Church. So we love SCB Construction Group, and they are no stranger to accolades, having repeatedly won Best of Newton by the Covington News. SCB Construction Group is a trusted partner for commercial projects across Georgia and beyond. As a leading general contractor, they specialize in turnkey design build, design bid, and commercial contracting services. From massive manufacturing facilities and distribution centers to church buildings, sports complexes, office spaces, and retail shops, their range is expansive and no project is too big. For a build where every detail tells a story, visit scbcg.com. That's scbcg.com. Big thanks to SCB Construction Group for sponsoring this episode.
It's kind of like being the HOA community when I was on HOA board member. It's kind of like having in charge of about 200 homes and now kind of like the entire city.
Right.
You go from 2 or 3 people say, hey, I got a problem, my grass, or this person is pooping their dog on my yard, to now, well, we need bigger roads.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, let me
Infrastructure and things like that.
let me just open my wallet,
Right.
But it's a lot to challenge.
Yeah, man, I know it is. And so for people who just don't know you, I mean, obviously there's a lot of people that elected you, but for the rest of the county that, a lot of people watch the show, kind of what's your background? How did you get to Newton County? You from Newton County, or you
No, I'm not originally from Newton
Okay.
County. I was born in Pennsylvania, a very small town south of Pittsburgh. Then I moved to New York. Obviously, I know what y'all gonna think. I'm a Yankee, stuff like that.
We don't use that language around here.
But I moved to New York. I decided to go to the Army, hopped around. Obviously, I've been 11 years in the Army, hopped around to different cities, kind of seen the world a little bit with the Army as well.
Yeah.
And I kind of finished right here in Covington.
Okay. Landed here.
Yeah.
Well, then what made you decide to run for office, man?
So honestly, it was my community.
Okay.
It was really my community. It was my community, and honestly, and I will be honest, Travis Moore.
Yeah.
One day I had a trash issue in my community, and Travis came to my community and picked up the tire trash from my community.
Huh.
Him and I believe Anderson Bailey.
Okay.
At that given time, I said, you know what, that's solid. That's really solid. And my community also told me, you do so much good things for this neighborhood. Why don't you just bring it to the entire city? So I said, I don't know about that. I don't get into no politics. I don't get into none of that. But you know what? They kept telling me. I was like, you know what? I'll go ahead and shoot my shot.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, it happened. And
Yeah.
and you made a little noise on Facebook too.
Yeah.
You would comment on things. As I remember, it was kind of I've been following the city council meetings for a while, and
Yeah.
I'll come to one every now and then, like I did the other night. Who knew? And
Yeah.
but I've seen you engage and go, well, here's my opinion, right?
Yeah.
Like you would go, I see what they're saying, but here's what I would do, and I
Yeah.
think that probably drummed up some support too, because it resonated with people, right?
Yeah. A little bit on the campaign trail, I apologize. I learned that it's all about transparency.
Yeah.
So a lot of the public honestly just wanted transparency. They wanted the truth, and they wanted to hear your reasoning why. It's a lot of times I spoke to the residents in the community, and they said, "Hey, I don't even know who my representatives are."
Ooh, yeah.
And I said, "You don't know who they are? Okay, cool."
You
Well,
should, right? Like because they're making an effort, right?
yeah. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm Dwayne Turner. I'm trying to be your representative, but that would be my first start. But, it's all about transparency, and it's all about letting the public know what's going on,
Yeah.
hearing the voices and hearing what people have to say.
Yeah.
I will never silence anyone's voice,
Yeah.
and that's kind of my theory.
That's great, man. And I heard, I hear you saying transparency, and I know that's like a buzzword, kind of like affordability.
Yeah.
But they become buzzwords because there's so much truth in them, right? Like people
Yeah.
are worried about how much things cost and affordability, but transparency, when it comes to government, the things that any of us that collect a tax, right? People want to know, wait a minute, what are you doing with it? Where did it go? How much are you spending on other things? And everyone's got an opinion because you deal with people's, in my situation, kids and their taxes.
Yeah. Yeah, we ain't gonna talk
Fighting
about
words.
as much as I heard about the school board, but it's the same thing with the city. It's politics in general. I definitely understand it.
Yeah. So when you ran, you had this phrase and I loved it. Let me see if I can. It was about people, not politics. Is that right? I'm pretty close. So what do you mean when you say? Because what do you mean when you say politics?
So let me tell you when I think politics, right? People try to get elected because they just want to be in that seat, versus like people want the seat, but they don't do for the people, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I did. This last meeting was mainly for the people, not based on my personal feeling, not based on how I feel about a certain action. If 1,000 people came to me and says, I'm very stronghold on the situation, I'm going to react. And I'm going to say, hey, yeah, these 1,000 people. I'm not going to ignore what those 1,000 people say, even if it's 10 people.
Yeah.
It's not about, that's why when I say it's not about politics, it's about people. You have to understand where the people's coming from. Everything is going up, and my concept is always to lead with what my people tell me, people I represent that put me in this spot to represent them.
So that you really are saying they elected me, I need to do what they're saying.
Yeah.
And so coming from the HOA world, because like you said, that is the toughest probably political place there is in the world.
Yeah, you know what? And believe it or not, everybody think being on the HOA, well, yeah, they're bad, they this and that. But HOA, honestly, sometimes it is a volunteer job.
Yeah.
Some HOAs, most HOAs.
Yeah.
But it's a tough job. And that could turn into a full-time job.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as being like on the council. They say, hey, yeah, the council is a part-time job.
You ain't seen that yet, have you?
You haven't seen my emails yet. you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
So, HOA can be a full-time job too. Because you have neighbors. Everybody has an issue. If you have 200 homes, trust me, you got 200 problems.
Yeah. And everyone has their own, it's their property, their thing. It's a lot of ownership. And then my neighbor may not feel the same way.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people to navigate and to massage those relationships if I can.
Yeah, we can try. Don't get me wrong. Everybody on the HOA don't like the HOA.
That's
but
right.
The one thing about me, the difference was when I came into my HOA community, I was engaged. I went out there in the community. I made myself known.
Yeah.
We had balances and stuff like that. I said, okay, cool. Let's go talk to them. What's the reason? Talk to me.
Yeah.
And a lot of it I solved. I can prove it. I sat there and I went to their house for dinner, and I sat there and said, "Hey, what can we do? What happened? Is this about your bushes?
Yeah.
Is this about your grass? Why are we charging $10,000 for some overgrown bushes?" Or whatever the situation is, or why you can't access this, or whatever the situation. Now, your HOA fees, I can't do nothing about that.
Right.
Hey, that's mandatory. Hell, even I gotta pay it. But when it comes to certain situation, and a lot of that is just miscommunication.
Isn't it always? I mean, mostly that.
Yeah, most of it is just definitely miscommunication.
And when we don't talk, we create our own narrative.
Yeah.
And if you can get a couple of folks in the same neighborhood not talking, but they both think the other one's doing this or saying this, it doesn't. You don't need that. Just get in the room and talk.
Yeah. That I learned that. I'm learning that now.
Yeah. Well, I know you are now where you're at. But do you think it's pretty good breeding ground? That's the wrong thing to say. Training ground for getting into city council.
Of course.
So you went from 200 houses to whatever it is, 1,500 or 1,000, 2,000.
Of course. So the thing is, it is I had the best of both worlds. So my houses is kind of half in the city and half in the county.
Okay.
So, I had to, it is a lot of training, because either way you roll a dice, you had someone, if we had a problem, we had to contact the city on this side. If we had a problem, we had to contact the county. And learning from both between the city and the county, they're two different governments. Two different governments.
They are.
And I see some things I see faster in the city, I see slower in the county, vice versa. So it is definitely a good training exercise, and also you got to see what the other board members say, because you might remember, I'm just one vote.
That's right.
I can't do the best, but I could definitely bring it to their attention and say, hey, let's fight for our neighbors. That's just how we do it.
Yeah. That's good, man. I being at the meeting the other night, just seeing how the city government meeting is so different than the one that I am a part of with the Board of Education. Like ours is a lot more probably rigid, stoic, and Robert's Rules of Order, and okay, you can talk now, and then you can talk now, and you guys are a little more like conversational, and kind of sharing, expressing all the feelings that everybody was feeling.
Yeah,
I was just like that's slightly different. And all right, so let me do this. Some people might say dysfunctional. I would probably say, there's a lot of healthiness to it too when you can get it out. Like when you can get in a room and you want it to be civil discourse as best you can. And I think at some point you even alluded to the fact that like we can do better. We can do better than we did tonight. But you want people passionate, don't you? I mean, you want council members who are passionate about what they think's right.
Yeah. My thing is, you in order to be elected official, you have to be passionate about what you do. So it's all about passion. It's all about that. We're always never going to agree. I don't know one council that's going to agree to every single thing, and I just don't know.
If everything is 606060, you're probably not making any ground, right? It's boring.
But you're not going to agree to everything, but we can always be civil. That's just kind of how it is. Last night's meeting was definitely, in my opinion, not civil.
Right.
that just wasn't civil at all.
Yeah.
But we always want to be professional, but we also got to know that we represent our constituents. Yeah. And that's just what it is. And we're very passionate about that.
Right. And your constituents want you to fight for them, right? That's what they want you to do. Yeah.
Of course,
if it's warranted.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump back for just a second and talk about what you do, like the real job, the day job, and that's law enforcement.
Yes, sir.
Right? And so you work for the Rockdale County Sheriff's Department.
Yes, sir.
So what do you do there? What's your role?
So right now I'm kind of an investigator, kind of just investigate crime.
Okay.
That's just within Rockdale County.
All right. And is that something that you enjoy doing, or?
Oh, I love it.
Okay.
I love law enforcement in general. It doesn't matter what agency anyone kind of works for. I just love being in law enforcement.
Okay.
That's my dream job.
Sweet. So you're a back to blue guy.
Yeah.
Back to blue.
I love law enforcement.
Well, you're bringing that perspective then to the city council, where I don't think anyone has law enforcement background on the city council. I don't think.
Not that I know of. No.
Yeah. So you're bringing a perspective that's really not up there.
Yeah.
Has any of that come up yet? I mean, I know you're just whatever it's been, 9 meetings in.
So sometimes my perspective is a little bit different because I could see it. We had that kind of marijuana ordinance the other meeting.
Oh, right, yeah.
So and I had to put my kind of law enforcement brain up there to see how the process is to make sure I'm voting correctly on that.
Mm-hmm.
But my perspective is a little bit different than the other council members.
Mm-hmm.
I try to just tell them like, hey, this is just what I think in
Mm-hmm.
this type of situation versus what I know and what I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's just that's kind of how I think.
Yeah. So when you're chosen to represent a group of people, and I know you've seen. I mean, law enforcement hasn't. People have not been kind to law enforcement lately. I mean, hopefully we're getting into a new season where it's a little better, and not that law enforcement's been bad, just the perception. Same with teachers. Like teachers has been for is two of the hardest positions to hire for in the United States right now is police officers and teachers. And it's probably some narrative that's unfair and some that's true and we need to work on, right? Police officers need to be as well trained as possible. Teachers do too, right? Like we don't need to have folks who sit a kid in front of a device and go learn it from that.
Yeah.
And we need police officers who are doing the job with fidelity and kindness, but getting the bad guys off the street too, right?
Yeah.
What have you seen, like, as a new council member? Have you experienced any of that, or is it really just, man, we appreciate what you do, and we're glad that you're here?
Yeah, it's more about I've seen nothing but positivity. That's just
Good,
me.
good.
In general, no one has said, to me like, "Hey, this is like I'm doing something bad" or whatever the situation is.
Good.
I think Newton County in general is have a positive side when it comes to law enforcement. That's just what I've seen. I haven't seen anything negatively or someone take a good look at me and say, "No, you're law enforcement. I'm not gonna tell you whatever the situation is."
Yeah.
So I always had a positive experience.
Good, man. That's good. Well, I don't want people in Newton County treating you bad. Well, so you hold a master's degree in public administration, sociology degree focused on criminal justice. So this is not like a job you just went into. Like you know your deal here. Degreed professional. Now, did you think, like when you were going to college and getting those degrees, did you think, oh man, I'm going to be serving one day in public office? Was it somewhere in there?
No.
Okay.
I can promise you, I didn't. Honestly, it hasn't even been a year yet when I thought to myself I was serving public office. I never thought to myself like, hey, I want to run for a council member. I think back then when I was studying, I didn't even know what a council was.
I hear you. Yeah.
But no, I think it more was down to I got into that degree more of kind of my parents. My whole family kind of was just in public service.
Okay.
My cousin was in the Army. I got a cousin right now in the Navy in Hawaii. I think he's going to Japan.
Wow.
My dad was in the Marine. Then he went to the Navy. Then he worked for juvenile, which is in law enforcement. Then I had a mom, in nursing. I had a grandma in nursing. I had my uncle, school bus driver. I had different kind of experiences when it comes to family.
Yeah.
Like my whole entire family was basically public service.
Wow.
So I said, hey, public service, what's the best thing I see on the map? Public administration. Let's look at that a little bit more. And I felt honored to have it.
But it led you into law enforcement, and then now as a side gig, a city councilman.
I mean, I always had this dream as a little boy. I wanted to be part of the police. And I followed that dream. After the Army, I said, what do I want to do? What did I want to do? I said, you know what? I want to be the police.
Yeah.
Let me go be the police. And I followed my dream. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's pretty good, pretty natural transition, don't you think, from like military service into public service, public safety.
Yeah.
And you kind of keep that band of brothers. Like I've talked about this with anytime I get a law enforcement officer on, even the chief of police in Covington, we had him on here, and I was like, Brent Feastings, and I was like, man, you still got that band of brothers? He's like, man, it's like none other. It is like a deep bond, isn't it?
Yeah, we have a good bond. It seemed like in the Army too. Marines or we have a bond, definitely. Brothers, yes.
And people, no one's been able to explain it. Right. So you're no different. It's like it's a bond. I can't really tell you about it. Like I can't explain it because you got to live it to know it.
Yeah, you just got to live it to know it. I always encourage people to join law enforcement. Get that side to know the side of law enforcement is always is not always negative. We have positive stuff. We have community outreach.
Sure.
You know, we try to show the community what's positive about it, you know. So it's not always negative.
Yeah.
It just depends on how it is.
Yeah, I think that is the narrative. Is people think it's negative. It's like, no, man. Like, it's not just reacting to the bad guys. It's preventing stuff as much as it is anything, right? It's education. It's helping, you know, the next generation and youth, like showing them you're the good guy, right? Like, hey, we're the good guy. We're trying to show you how life can be, and we all work a little better when things are safe and orderly, right?
Yeah, definitely.
In your campaign, you mentioned traffic, infrastructure, 2-lane road kind of stuff. What concerns you now? And you might not have even had any time yet to discuss these type topics at the council, but what concerns you most about how Covington's growing right now? If you were to talk about just Covington's growth, what concerns you?
What concerns me right now is the infrastructure around Covington.
Okay.
What concerns me right there on Covington bypass, where you have a 2-lane road. You know, when people in the North Links community, the Covington Place community, I forgot the name of it over there, Malcolm Drive community.
Yeah.
You know, they can't really get out of their own subdivision. You know, they got to wait 5 minutes to get out when possibly they're already running to work, you know?
Yeah.
So a lot of it was just saying like, okay, you see all these apartment communities coming into Covington. Let's kind of like slow down on it a little bit and let our infrastructure catch up to it. You know, let our infrastructure build and kind of slow down the pace in Covington real quick. We don't need to be, you know, Buckhead, Atlanta real quick. You know, let's slow down till we get there, till we're able to get there.
Yeah.
And that's mainly the issue that I saw.
Yeah. Well, that corridor you're talking about, you must live in that area. No, because that is so tough. If you're trying to turn out of any of those places you just named towards like 278, or like towards the El Charro 278, it's almost impossible.
Yeah,
and then we got a school right there. That doesn't help any.
I lived it. I experienced it.
Yeah.
You know, have you seen? And I have nothing wrong with the theme school right there, but if you go in the morning time and you see the long traffic there, right there, getting out at 7:30, you know, I'm just like, whoa, I'm down here by Dunkin' Donuts, and I'm like, I see the light green. What's going on?
It's not moving at all.
It's not moving. But you know, I experienced it firsthand.
Yeah, and there's more. I mean, that all that around the quarry I see is now about to be built out. Right, right there near the Ford dealership. Is that right? Ford.
Yeah,
I think it's Ford.
Yeah,
behind Nitro to Go. Like that's gonna be massive. Like that's just gonna add more.
Yeah, that's
traffic.
before my term a little bit.
Sure.
I think if I was on term at that time, I definitely would have questioned a lot on that. But yeah, it's building, and hopefully GDOT has some solvability factors we can
and
build
sooner
better.
than later, right? GDOT can sometimes take years.
Oh my God, yeah.
We don't have to. Oh man, and that just the commissioners, the county commissioners were just talking about an expansion to Brown Bridge Road the other day that GDOT is now doing.
Yeah.
And that has been in the works forever.
Yeah.
And Brown Bridge is similar, but probably more traveled than the corridor you're talking about right now on MLK Boulevard.
I mean, I've been up and down Brown Bridge, and trust me, Brown Bridge is definitely small. You know, and I'm happy that they're going to get it hopefully soon. Hopefully it's not 2050.
I know.
You know, but you know, I think sometimes all about just fighting for that road, you know, and that's just what it is.
Yeah. And I think it sounds like you're willing to do that from what I've seen already.
Yeah.
So I don't know does Covington have a moratorium right now on building? I think it is maybe on data centers or I can't even remember, man. I don't want to put you on the spot. But I know that growth is like the council, and I know the commissioners have all tried to like, let's slow down for a minute to see what do we need.
Yeah.
And then the infrastructure that you guys the city is doing right now, we just finished up whatever it was, Floyd and Newton Drive or wherever, like those were massive projects, and now it's coming to the square, right? And it's like everybody's kind of like holding on, going, oh no, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
But that's the kind of stuff you're talking about, right? We can't bring in more apartments and homes and stuff if the infrastructure is old and weak. You know,
and that's the issue. You know, you have to build. You have to start in the center and expand out. in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You can't build more massive apartments and more massive roads and just not the infrastructure just don't meet that criteria.
Mm-hmm.
I look at on Highway 36, I think there's a town center back there.
Mm-hmm.
Don't quote me. It might be a town center or apartments. I don't know. I just look at it might be a town center. I think.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look at it, I'm like, okay, that intersection right there is already jam packed.
Yes.
And Highway 36 and Covington bypass.
Yes. That is.
It's already jam packed versus like, okay, what are we doing about this intersection?
Mm-hmm.
I learned a lot from it in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's something. There's got to be some balance, right, to economic growth and protecting the quality of life for our
Yeah.
residents. We don't want people sitting in traffic all day long, but we know we need economic growth. Like,
Yeah.
it's just a messy thing, Well, we call this the messy middle. Like,
Yeah.
economic growth and quality of life. We need economic growth for quality of life, but the
Yeah.
quality of life suffers if there's too much economic growth, and it's all messy. So, like, if you could kind of envision what the city of Covington could look like, what would that kind of smart growth maybe look like that still, and you hear people say it all the time, that's keep that small town charm, like
Yeah.
keep that small town charm, but at the same time, man, we're a county of 130,000 people. We have it in our head that this is a small town charm, but what makes it a small town charm is the people, right? Not necessarily the buildings and roads.
I think it's more the tradition.
Mm.
It's more the tradition that makes Covington.
Mm-hmm.
That makes that tradition vibe on the square.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts, honestly, I think Covington itself just starts on the square.
Yeah.
So it's like keeping the tradition, and that's kind of what I ran on, and that's a promise I always made. I'm keeping the tradition on how it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think once we expand further than that, and we bring more residents, and we bring more houses and communities and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and our infrastructure is just not there at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
it's just that's an issue.
Yeah.
That's a true issue, and that's kind of what I heard a lot on the campaign trail.
Right. Which I know is a catch-22 for you, right? Because you're like, well, we need to build the infrastructure, but that costs money, and nobody wants to raise their taxes. And then you're back to like, it's just that messy balance of doing what's right. You know what you got to do to service the citizens who are here, and the ones that are coming, and that costs a little bit of money. And it's just a lot of, and that's got to be mind-blowing, man. When you get in there and you go, okay, we got to build this budget to service all these needs. And there's different revenue sources, right? Like that can get so confusing. And I don't even know how long it would take to learn all that. But when it comes, the funds come from this regional development thing, and they come from this area, and they come from property taxes. It's like, holy cow! What money do we have, and what can we spend it on? Right?
Yeah.
Man, well, I don't envy you having to figure all that out because you just step onto the board. Well, but let's talk about. So you were mentioning. Some of like that infrastructure, and some of that is stormwater.
Mm-hmm.
In your campaign, you mentioned you'd love to try to see that either diminish or go away, the fees for that. Just kind of give me a little perspective. Like, what is that even possible? And what?
So a lot of it was questioned on the campaign trail. Like, how do you sit there and get rid of stormwater? When I spoke to a lot of people on the campaign trail, I told them how.
Okay.
My main focus on that was the Amazon data center. That's already come.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, I have no control on the Amazon data center.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. I can't say, hey, they're coming and they're doing this or what else is wishing is. It was already approved.
Right.
That's prior to me.
For or against doesn't matter to you now. It's like, what do we do with the revenue?
I mean, now it's like, what do we do with the revenue?
Yeah.
We use that revenue to eliminate the stormwater tax.
Okay.
That was my goal. I seen that coming a mile away.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, okay, cool. We understand that the budget or the city's budget alone is different versus the money and the revenue that we're going to get from Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my whole campaign.
Mm-hmm.
That's my goal. That's still my goal, and that is something I will fight for.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people want to see the stormwater tax either get way lower or they just get rid of it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, and it's a hard one. When Councilwoman Davis was on, Like she was giving me grief about, the Board of Education and some bills that might or might not be delinquent. I don't know. We'll let legal people figure that part out.
Hey.
But she was told me straight up, hey, y'all need to pay that thing. But it would be nice if it didn't exist, certainly. But you still have to have the infrastructure. So you're just saying, we know it's a service we need to provide, or whatever it is. The pipes is the service we need. The infrastructure we need to build needs to be there, needs to operate, all those things. But maybe there's a different way to pay for it than the taxpayers.
Yeah, it's a lot more money than what we normally have. When you look at the chart of Amazon, you have millions. Don't quote me on an exact amount, but you have a lot more money coming from that center than we make in the own city itself.
Right.
So the logic of it is like, okay, get rid of the stormwater people. Give that back to the community.
Right.
The community wants to see stormwater go away. We understand that we have to pay it.
Right.
That's not an issue for a lot of people.
Yeah.
If it's a benefit, we already have a data center coming. There's a whole lot of people that don't want it. Right. We understand that. Right. But we have to come to the norm and the realization that, okay, cool. How can we benefit off it? We could benefit off getting rid of the stormwater. That's just number one. A lot of people just didn't want to see it.
Yeah.
And I think with the budget, that can be somewhere placed in the budget. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it would love to see it go away. And are there other things certainly that's probably enough to cover more than just stormwater.
Yeah. Once again,
have y'all even had those discussions yet? Maybe it's out of line to ask you, but
not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Right.
I think the main discussion we had now is to getting rid of taxes for everyone.
The homestead.
The homestead that's coming out. Once again, I seen that coming a mile away before my pain trail. I was questioning, hey, how do you, from my what you call it, from my competition, hey, how is he going to get rid of taxes, and how is he going to get rid of stormwater? And I said, if you would have came to the we had a debate kind of, you kind of would have know. Well, if you want to ask me, I'll tell you. But I sat there and I told the public that was my goal. I said, hey, you see Amazon coming, right? A lot of people didn't know at that time Amazon bringing a lot of money to this town.
Right. Yeah.
Big money to this town. Probably as much money as the town has never seen.
Certainly, it sounds like it. Yeah.
So I said, hey, let's go on and use that to cover this to help the residents. That's why my slogan was eliminate stormwater, lower taxes, get rid of at least the bare minimum, get rid of the taxes for the seniors and disabled. I talked to a lot of seniors, and a lot of them said, hey, the taxes keep going up. They're forcing us to probably have to sell our house soon. And they've been in Covington for years because of the taxes keep going up.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, I understand that. And that's something that I will definitely fight for in the future. But the whole eliminating taxes and stuff for everyone, homestead.
Yeah.
It wasn't a surprise to me.
Right.
It wasn't a surprise to me at all.
You were already thinking we can do this math this way. We can use these funds this way.
It was just more of win.
Right.
It was just more of win for me. It was more of something that I saw. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, you know how much money Amazon got?
Right.
So if you did the math wasn't mathing. I sat there and I said, okay, Amazon is worth this, and we have this much that we're bringing to the city yearly, and no one has yet thought about. Okay, cool. So it was something I saw, and it's something that I'm going to continue to still fight.
Yeah, good. Well, I love to see any public servant be creative about where we can pull revenue that's not from the taxpayers.
Yeah.
Right. Because I'm with you, man. It's the number one thing I hear at our board meetings is the senior tax. And we know the school tax is high. Like, we know it is, but that's the only thing we got, right? Like, this is the only way we have to hang on. Let me make my point.
We ain't gonna talk about the board taxes now.
We're talking about school board tax. But it's because we don't have electric. We don't have other revenue sources. We can't do like SPLOST things that you guys can do. Well, not SPLOST, but E-Lost or whatever it is. You guys get, not E-Lost, but whatever. Flossed. That was it.
Yeah.
Floss, a floating local for flexible local option sales tax. we don't have any of those options. Like, we just have property tax. And so when that's all you have, that number's high, right? Because that's all you got. Now, if we had these other ways to make, or if we could charge tuition, or if we could do, whatever, but we can't, and nor should we, because public education, to me, is a right of our citizens, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, but this would be fun. We could talk more about that if you want, because I know you got to pay school tax too.
Yeah, I got to pay it too. I can't get around it.
Nope, I can't either. Maybe we can use some of that data center money. Oh, man. So, all right, let's talk about, you were talking about traditions earlier on the square, and everything kind of like the town center, everything comes out from there. I like that, kind of the spoke of the hub of the wheel, and everything spokes out from there. Obviously, a big decision recently was the fireworks on the square and that whole celebration. That was just a very difficult, controversial thing, I know, and people would just love to hear maybe where you landed on that. I mean, I know you wanted to kind of keep that tradition, if I understand correctly, and you're from law enforcement, so you did have a perspective there that, not you were going against whatever the chief might have said, or the mayor or whoever else, but you definitely had a perspective. Maybe kind of share that perspective here, if you will, like just kind of let us know what you were thinking. And
so my thing with the fireworks was I'm all about tradition. I'm all about letting people have what they want to have. And the first thing was fireworks. I got on the phone with the sheriff. I spoke to the chief. And I said, hey, are y'all for the fireworks? Are y'all against the fireworks? And the one thing I learned between those conversations was 2025 fireworks was better than 2024, in my opinion. That's just what was told to me, and I said, okay, that's pretty solid. I could work with that, and a little bit was it, a lot of the problems was the kids coming on the squares. That was a big issue. But when I think about it, I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, let's start out by this. Cool. We have over 80 law enforcement personnel on a square at that given time.
Wow.
That's kind of what was told to me. I think it was 80 in the 80s. If don't quote me, I think it was definitely, I remember that number somewhere.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, but when the logic that I thought about, I said, okay, well, Mercedes Benz only have an average of 30.
Really?
State Farm only has an average of maybe 30, 40. I don't know. If you ever go to the basketball games, do you see a law enforcement officer at every section?
Yeah.
No, you really don't.
Yeah.
Do you see a law enforcement officer? I don't know their numbers.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm just saying, when I go there, I don't see 80.
Yeah.
I don't see a law enforcement at every single corner, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the situation is, I said, okay, and they're managing, State Farm has about, I think off the top of my head, I'm just going on top of my head, maybe 20,000 people.
Yeah, that'd be my guess.
Yeah. Mercedes Benz has about
55 or 60 maybe.
Yeah. 1,000 people. So how about sometimes it's about going outsourcing planning, right? When you have 10 people in a room, sometimes you might need to bring an extra 10 people that has experience in stuff like this, that has experience in large crowd gathering, that can look at it and say, hey, you know what? You might want to do this. This is a hole you're missing. I get the logic of the snipers that they had on the rooftop and stuff like that. And honestly, I understand it, because you have I don't know how much the square amount of people bring, but you have a lot of people in one area, which makes sense, because I think at State Farm, I'm, once again, don't quote me.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know, but I think when it comes to large events, they would have snipers too. So I get it's a large event. It's a large event thing, right? And public safety is always my number one concern. I am public safety,
right?
So it's always my number one concern. But when you don't include those people into the plan, you look at people and say, hey, these 10 people might not know what they're doing. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not saying that they don't.
Right. But maybe they don't have that kind of large scale experience.
There you go. There you go. You bring in people that has that experience, and to see, what's the issue.
Right.
Then it was circling, hey, we don't have the funds for it. And I said, whoa, okay, if that's the issue, I understand it.
Right.
We can't pay for it. We can't pay for it. But then when I had an hour conversation, I said, oh, okay, we can pay for it. Then No, we're not going to run that narrative.
Right.
We're going to say, no, we're going to tell the truth.
Yeah, tell the
It's
truth.
just about
Transparency.
transparency,
Yeah.
and that's why when I go on Facebook and I say, hey, I'm all about being transparent.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I ran on. I
Yeah.
say, I'm going to tell the truth.
Yeah.
I have big integrity. I learned that from law enforcement. I learned that
Mhm.
from the Army. I learned that from my own generation from just growing up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all about being transparent. We're going to make sure we tell the truth. We're going to make sure we're not going to twist it. We're not going
Mm-hmm.
to turn it. No, it's the truth.
Yeah.
It's the truth.
Good, bad, and ugly, right?
Yeah, yeah. So my thing was, okay, has anyone spoken to anyone in Atlanta that
Mm-hmm.
said, hey, how do you manage this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we could probably do this. We could probably do this. Okay.
Yeah. What can we learn from those bigger groups? Maybe
There we
is there a
go.
consultant that probably specializes in these kind of
There
things?
we go.
Maybe.
I learned that the council could create an ordinance that says, your kid can be out at a certain time. And if not, that parent can be fined.
Mm.
So it's just kind of how it is. It's certain things you can put into place. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying it hasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it was improperly planned prior.
Sure.
I'm not saying any of that. But I think with better planning comes with better results.
Mm.
And for people in law enforcement tell me, hey, 2024 was better than 2025.
Mm-hmm.
I said, yeah, let's continue to run that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just see if we can get a better plan
Mm-hmm.
and offer. If you need 80 law enforcement, let's try 120.
Right, yeah.
That's just what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's all about planning.
Yeah.
And I just think for that, the planning should have been better.
Gotcha. Well, it'd be interesting to see. It doesn't just go away forever. Like 4th of July will come again next year. Do we have that conversation again, or is it like just just quiet for a while?
We got another year, so we're gonna see how it's gonna go next year.
Yeah.
We're gonna figure out that funding part. We're gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Let's switch to another one that was came up the other night, and you can just help me out with here because I don't remember who all voted how, and it doesn't matter. It was really just about the special use permit for a tattoo studio, piercing studio, and I guess it was on the square proper. Is that why it was a big debate? Yeah. So I was gathering that. Now I had not been to the other meeting, so I was trying to piece things together pretty quickly. But the individual who was trying to get the special use permit was there. Obviously, just disappointed that she didn't get the permit, and the council eventually voted. It might have been 3-3, and maybe the mayor broke the tie, or maybe it was 4-2, 4-2. And so what was the where were you at on that? Because I felt like watching it live, like watching it in person. I thought, man, I think he's on the fence here, because it felt like you really wanted to see her get her permit, but at the same time you were like, man, I've got these people who I'm representing who've said they don't want it. So just take me through your line of reasoning as best you can, as much as you want to share.
So that's a true definition of voting for the people, right? Which means that if I have someone that calls me, and I had one of my constituents there, and she spoke negative about it, not negative, opposition about it, I have to go with what the people want, right? And that's what I did. I can never, I can sleep at night because I did exactly what my people on the east side wanted. I spoke to a good friend in the Covington place. We spoke to about it prior. Hey, he told me the same thing. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. And I represented the people in that one. So in that type of situation, what else can I do?
Yeah.
I had to vote on it. I think it's coming up again. Believe it or not, you might see it again.
Oh wow!
But I had to go with what my voters say. And no matter what I believe in, I believe my general philosophy on tattoo. I didn't have an issue with it.
Yeah,
I didn't have an issue with it. I have no problem with any business owners starting up their business, getting their business jumping, stuff like that. I truly have no issue with it. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't see anything foreseeing the negative about it. But if I would have voted yes that night, then I would have been voting for myself. That's not what people was coming to me and telling me.
Yeah,
that's not what my own constituents was calling me about.
I do want people to hear that. And I think it can get lost on people if you just weren't present. Like if you didn't watch it all go down in person and feel what because it was palpable in the room, right? There's tension in the room, and you hear the council even, there's solid fours. The againsts weren't as solid, but they were like, but we got to do what the people are asking us to do.
Yeah.
It truly felt like representative government happening, but at the same time, inner struggle.
Yeah,
Right?
it was a struggle because my mind was telling me, you know what, you want it, so go ahead, vote yes.
Yeah.
But then my heart was like, no, because you got to listen to what your constituents tell me.
I
They
know.
put me there for a reason,
Right.
and that's exactly what I did. I said no. I mean, I had one right there telling me no. I had some phone calls. I had some people reach out to me, and I said, what's your reason behind it? And they gave me their reason. Some of it I thought was valid. Some of it I thought was really not valid. But I saw what they was talking about, and I said, hey, okay, what's the actual reason behind it?
Yeah.
I think the next time it come up, because it looked like it ain't going nowhere, in my opinion. But once again, it looked like it ain't going nowhere.
I don't know how those things work. I don't know. Like, you can't bring it up every single meeting, right? Like, I don't know how it works.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works, man.
But I think if it ever came up again for me, I think I would actually have to walk my ward. And I think I would have to ask.
You just pull everybody out.
Hey, you have to talk to everyone.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I drove my ward. I talked to some people. I talked to some random people. Like, I literally went to random people and pulled them over. Not, well, not like that. But use my personal car to say, hey, how you doing? I'm Councilman Turner.
Yeah.
I just got a question for you. What do you think about a tattoo on the square?
Yeah.
And some of them said, oh, Lord, you just hit me at a tattoo on a square?
Let me think about this.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I see it. I don't. Ooh, I would say no. I don't know. I'm interested in what my wife would say.
Right.
She'd call his wife and whatever. She'd tell me, you know what? No. But yes.
Right. The same struggle, right?
But, you also had some people say to me, you know what? I don't even go to the square. And that was the issue. That was one of the issues. So I was like, why you don't go to the square? She said, it just got too much traffic-y and too much tourism stuff. And I was like, look, sorry about that. They need more family-oriented. So I was just like, oh, you need more family-oriented spots? He's like, yeah, you need more family-oriented stuff. And I was like, okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
So that was just a few versus I think this time I would actually go door to door.
Yeah.
Or I would sit there and say, hey, reach out to me because I want to make sure I'm making a clear vote for you.
Yeah.
I don't want to make a vote based on myself.
Right.
I just don't do it. I don't think I will ever do it.
Yeah.
But I think I will make a vote for everyone.
Yeah. Well, that's good, man. And good to hear too, because I do want people to hear that there was a struggle and that that you were a true representative in the moment, not doing your own self-interest. And
it took everyone to vote when they said, please vote. It took everyone less than 2 seconds to vote.
But you were like,
I was sitting here thinking, like, contemplating, like, hey, woo, do I want to do it? Yes, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it. But then I saw my opposition, my constituent that opposed it. And I said, you know what? No, I got to go it. I got to go with my heart.
Yeah, it's funny, those things when you talk about going door to door. At some point, and I don't know how this is just a crazy thought. It's not something you could actually do probably, but that's where I would go. I wonder if a referendum would be somewhere where we just put it out there and let the people decide, right? Rather than the council. But the council's supposed to be representative of the people. But like you said, you don't until you poll whatever. Let's say you're 6,000 people, or however many people you represent. How do you know how many exactly? You're just gonna get the loudest ones, right? The loudest fors and against, possibly. But
I think the issue on that is so you have a lot, and it has nothing to do with the kind of beef kind of going on. You have the city residents, but you have the county residents.
Yeah.
We as council members have to realize that we represent the city, and I get the county residents; their voice matters too. That has nothing to do with it, but we also are representatives of the city,
right?
So now the difference is, like, and I saw the poll on, I think it was Covington
News or somebody.
Yeah, I saw the poll. But then I said, oh, a lot of people won it. But then I thought to myself, how many of those people are city?
Right.
I was like, how do I debate? I don't know if Frank James is part of the city or is he, like, I don't know. So I can't really go much on it.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of people in a city that reached out to me that said, hey, you know what, I want the tattoo shop, and I'm the constituent, and I'm your constituent or whatever. And you know what, you don't even have to be my constituent.
Yeah.
You can actually just be a resident. Even if you didn't vote for me.
Right.
It's just like, hey, just tell me what you want. I'm very good at it. I'm like, okay, cool. If you just holler at me and say, you know what, I want no tattoo. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'll take a poll myself.
Right.
Say, okay, cool. I talked to 140 people that said that they won. I talked to 141 people that said that they didn't.
Right.
That's just how I have to do it, because I'm just a representative of the people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've said it a lot, and I appreciate that, because that's hard to do when you're making these decisions, to just represent the people.
Yeah.
Well, you did mention people, if they did want to contact you, like, how do they reach out to you? Do you have I know you have the Facebook page. And is it like, oh man, I won't remember it. Councilman?
Yeah, Councilman
Turner.
On my Facebook page is Councilman Dwayne Turner.
Okay, Councilman Dwayne Turner.
Yes, sir.
So they could follow you there, catch any of your updates and what you're leaning on and how you're thinking about things, and maybe that's where you even ask, hey, what do you guys think times? And,
yeah, I'm trying to get out more into the Covington living page a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
I see I don't know off the top of my head, thousands of people there, because I still believe in that one Newton theme, where at the same time the city of Covington believes in I apologize. City of Covington is in Newton County, and I still believe in that one Newton thing.
Yeah.
So that one Newton theme. So when we're sitting there, I don't want to have the city beef with the county beef with the city and stuff like that. We're all one Newton.
Yeah.
So that's why I post. When I post in the tattoo shop updates or fireworks updates and stuff like that, I post it there.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you know what? Let's be transparent. Let's be transparent, and let's bring this out to Newton County.
Yeah.
Some people on there are city residents. Some people on there are county residents.
Yeah.
So we're one Newton. That's just kind of how it is.
I have appreciated, and I've seen this trend now with like the posts that you make. Anthony Henderson's making posts. And like he had a long one this week, kind of explaining his thoughts on things, and same with Travis Moore and even Jared does too. Like there's a lot of explaining of how you're thinking and voting, which is transparent. But I don't know that we've always done that. Like this is a new world to see all of majority of our council people going, here's what I'm thinking, and then people can respond, right?
Yeah.
They can go, well, I live two doors down, or whatever, and here's what I'm thinking.
And that's what it is. It's more about just being transparent. The problem I had is when I was on a campaign trail, a lot of people didn't know two things. First one, which I was crazy, was they didn't know who represent them. That was kind of the big thing. They didn't know who represent them, who their council people was. That's people from just different residents, right? The other thing was they wanted to see change. They want the representatives to let them know exactly what's going on. I mean, some of it I get, some of it is just posting on your own Facebook page and stuff like that. I see it. Trust me, I get a phone call about, hey, how did this happen? How did that happen? And I see it. But at the same time, I'm like, you know what? I get maybe my followers is not as big as everyone else's followers, but I want to put everything out there for everyone to see.
Yeah.
For everyone to see. And because I want the county's input too.
Yeah.
On certain things. Like, what is your input? How do you feel on that? And the one thing, even if you're against me, you can see me on there. Thank you for your voice. I have I see a whole lot of people against me. I can promise you, I could name about 10 people on my list that really I see consistently. Yeah. And you know what? I'm like, whoa, I don't even know you.
Yeah.
But you know what? I won't say anything. Oh, thank you for your voice. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's all about courtesy.
Yeah.
Always about courtesy.
Yeah. This episode of the Town Square Podcast is brought to you by Luther Rice College and Seminary. A community's well-being often reflects the spiritual health of its people. That's why a local Christian college like Luther Rice is a critical voice in our time and culture.
You're absolutely right, Trey. And for me, this is more than just an ad read because I'm actually a Luther Rice alumnus. So my degree there helped prepare me not only for ministry, but also for engaging with the community in meaningful ways.
Yeah, same here. I trusted Luther Rice for my education too, and I can tell you firsthand, they're committed to shaping leaders who impact the church, the marketplace, and the world.
Absolutely. So listen, whether you're a high school student looking for a biblically based dual enrollment option, an adult learner wanting to deepen your biblical knowledge, or a working professional looking for development to impact your workplace, Luther Rice is a trusted option for continuing your education from a Christian worldview.
Yes, every program is 100% online and designed for your unique calling, from dual enrollment and undergraduate degrees to certificate programs and doctorate level study. They have options for the entire community that are biblical, affordable, accredited, and completely online.
All right, so here's the call to action. Take your next step toward your calling. Visit lutherrice.edu to learn more. Again, that's lutherrice.edu.
Well, you're hitting on this theme, and I love it because the One Newton theme. We've tried to carry that mantle in the past, and we do good at times, and we fail at times. But I like hearing newer politicians coming or public servants coming into the realm and saying, let's don't let that die, right? Like One Newton, it's still Porterdale matters, Oxford matters,
Yeah.
City of Covington matters,
Yeah.
Newbern, Mansfield matter.
Yeah.
Let's try to keep it focused on the whole of Newton, and everybody's going to have their councils and all that stuff. But let's focus on the whole, because if Covington gets better, we want Mansfield to get better too.
Mhm.
And if Oxford starts growing, well, that's going to affect Covington as well.
Mhm.
So I think we all have to at least be singing from the same sheet music.
Yeah.
Even if we're singing different notes, it just needs to be in harmony, right?
Yeah, it's all about One Newton. We're always One Newton.
Yeah.
I believe in that. I think I've seen that hashtag before.
Oh yeah.
But I'm a true believer in that,
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day, I understand the situation where I'm a city representative, but at the same time, I believe in Newton County.
Yeah.
In general.
Yeah.
I believe the voices of Newton County, all the way from down there on 212 to all the way in Oxford.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you live on a border or not. You're still in Newton County.
Yeah.
That's what I believe in.
Yeah. So let's wrap it up like this then. If that's our goal, right, is to have that kind of unity, but at the same time, we have this beautiful diversity of ideas and perspectives, and we both sit in meetings that can get passionate and heated. How do we walk out of there unified when it gets kind of that tense? What's the solution to that, so that we can all keep moving forward, right? Not hold grudges and fight for
Honestly,
stuff.
when you're an elected official, you shouldn't hold a grudge, because you're going to have someone that doesn't agree with what you're saying
Mm-hmm.
at all. I experienced that last night. I tried to get the whole stormwater
Mm-hmm.
fees delinquent.
Mm-hmm.
And the first question I got is, what about the people that's paying their stormwater fees?
Right.
And I'm not going to go back and forth with you, but
Right.
we're not talking about those people. We're talking about the delinquent people,
Right.
But at the same time, I understand that we have to know when to let stuff go, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to know when to let stuff go and learn how to move forward
Mm.
in certain situations.
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't fight, but at the end of the day, we understand that it's going to come. It's going to
Mhm.
happen, because once again, I think every elected official should be passionate on their job,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's just how it is, because you know why? You did the work to get that seat.
Mm-hmm.
You did the work to get that office, or to get that podium, or to get that
Mm-hmm.
all the way down from the federal, all the way down to the local.
Mm-hmm.
You did the work.
Mm-hmm.
So you should be passionate for what you believe in, and also what your voters believe in.
Mm-hmm.
Me, I'm passionate for what I believe in. I believe in the tattoos,
Mhm.
right? I believe it. My voters, at the time, they told me that they didn't.
Right.
I spoke to some local businesses. It was the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, let's look at it from that point.
Mm-hmm.
If it comes up again, I will actually get out there and
Figure it out, huh?
I got to get out there and walk again.
Yes, right.
I got to get out there and walk. But
City councilman's job is never done.
Hey, it's never done, because at the end of the day, I don't want to make a vote where I can't say I don't know what I'm voting on.
Right.
I don't want to say what I'm voting on. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel like, oh well, he did that for his own pleasure, or he did that for his own leadership
Mhm.
and stuff like that. No. Excuse
Mhm.
me. I did that because that's just what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what I want. That's just what I want to do. I want to make sure I'm doing it for the voters.
Yeah.
And I will always do that for it.
Yeah. Well, man, a true public servant is one that serves the public, and
Yeah.
so thank you for doing that. And
Thank you. I appreciate it.
if people wanted to reach out to you, Facebook, is that going to be the best way to do it for now?
Yeah,
Okay.
Facebook, Councilman Dwayne Turner.
All right.
Honestly, my phone number is traveling out there, 516-439-1018.
Oh no, he just gave it
But
to you.
hey, it's traveling out there. I'm only saying it because I got people calling me right now that I don't even know who they are. So, but it is out there, which is fine.
Yeah.
They can always reach out to me, shoot me a text. Facebook is preferred message. I already had multiple people reach out to me.
Yeah.
That's just the preferred method. Email turner30014@yahoo.com. That's another one as well.
Dang. All right, man. Well, thank you for giving us all that, and keep serving the public.
Yes.
And I hope you guys 4-year terms. 4-year terms.
Yes.
So in 4 years, 2030, I hope we can look back and go, Covington's a better place today than it is when we started.
That's my goal. That's my goal.
All right,
I'm
man.
always gonna have that positive look.
Heck yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast,
Thank
and
you.
can't wait to talk to you again.
Yes, sir.
All right. See you.
All right.